This is Ron Kennedy. I'm the Chief of Heritage Operations for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Welcome to the Commander's Comment. We are here tonight to talk about what's going on in the SCV, try to bring you up to date on some things, and help promote the cause. I wanted to let you know that usually we have the Commander-in-Chief, Jason Boshers, with us, but Jason can't make it tonight. He's had a family emergency. His father's been in the hospital all day, still in the hospital, had a sort of a major heart issue, but he's doing better. But Jason is with his mother, so we brought in to help us out today the Lieutenant Commander in Chief, my good-looking, almost as good-looking as me, twin brother, Donnie Kennedy, Walter Donald Kennedy, and there he is. And we're going to try to bring you up to date on what's going on in the SCV, let you know just how important your participation in this organization is. We have a lot going on and a lot that we need to accomplish. And I just appreciate you being here. We've got some of the questions that you posed last time. So I want to remind you, if you have questions, be sure to put it in the chat. We will respond to it. There's about 2 or 3 questions I'm going to ask Moose at a later time during this show to read to you so we can respond back to the people. We appreciate your questions and we want to try to get it back to you. Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Ron, and it's an honor to sub for Commander Boshers, and our prayers and thoughts goes to he and his family. Just read an email from him, and his father did have a cardiac cath, and they're looking at maybe helping him out with some medication. So hopefully everything will turn out okay. Now, for my part here, I would like to kind of start out, if it's okay, if you just reminding our members about some upcoming events nationally. And one of them, of course, is our national SCV reunion in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Now, it's this year, this coming year will be 2023, will be in Hot Springs. 2024 is going to be in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, all this information can be obtained at scv.org. Just go to our website, scv.org, and you've got your information right there. And I've spoken with Commander Lloyd Mott of Arkansas, and they are just blowing things out up there to getting ready for this convention. It's going to be a great reunion. And everybody, if you have not been to Hot Springs, you really, really need to go. It's going to be at a very old, historic, revamped hotel. And it goes back to the Prohibition days. Ron, you might remember that. You're old enough to remember all that. So anyway, that is one of the things, and we'll talk about other things as we go along. But I think that for people to really look at that, make sure that we get everything lined up for the reunion. Don't wait to the last minute and get left out.
All right. We had a great reunion in Cartersville. We keep bragging on that, but Lloyd Mock is determined he's going to be as good, if not better. And I'm sure our friends in Arkansas are just equally as enthused. So get your hotel reservations in early. Make sure you're able to attend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, Donald, have you talked to Mr. Jimmy Hill? He's with the AOT, I do believe. But
yes. We got several things coming up with the with what I call SCV forums or workshops for our armies. And Jimmy Hill and I just forgot about
JC Hanna.
JC's name. JC Hanna in the Army of the Trans-Mississippi have already lined up some workshops. Now, these workshops, folks, are very important. You have people like Eric Pravetti that's with membership. He'll come there and help you organize things and make sure that your members know how to use all the tools that we have at headquarters as far as your adjutants and your commanders. He does a great program there helping us out. Adam Southern will usually attend and tell us some of the things going on both in the museum and at headquarters that people need to know. And as of right now, I haven't heard from Kevin Stone in the Army of Northern Virginia, but I'm sure that they'll have something going on and we'll post that. But we're looking at, I see the AOT is in March. And Ron, I believe JC has told us that it'll be in August for the Army of the Trans-Mississippi. So we'll find out soon what's going to be going on in the Army of Northern Virginia. So there are things going on, folks. One of the things I like these workshops, you get people like the Chief of Heritage Operation. It will explain what's going on with the Confederate Legion and the Make Dixie Great Again effort. Judge Advocate sometime will come along and he'll talk about what's going on as far as the legal processes that we have and we're dealing with. So this is very informative, and you get to talk and see some friends that you may not always see. So take advantage, folks, of these workshops in the Army of the Trans-Mississippi and the Army of Tennessee, and hopefully in the upcoming one in Army of Northern Virginia. So we've got a lot of new things going on in the organization that we need to keep up to date with, and we will definitely do that. So that is one of the things that we need to think about in the future.
Donald, Jimmy Hill, among other things, has kept us real busy with the timeline. So I think Donald and I have been graced with the opportunity to do the timeline for Reconstruction, and we've been busy, very busy on that project. I guess we're about, we're almost ready to start doing the videos for it. So Jimmy Hill, I can't speak high enough praises for what he's done. He's up there just about every day in the mornings working, getting it ready, and it really looks good. And we begin early on with the very early settlement of the South, going through the Constitutional Convention, going into the War Secession, all the way through the war, into Reconstruction, active. And Donald and I have got Reconstruction broken down into active Reconstruction, when we actually had military rule, and then passive Reconstruction, when we had sort of the semblance of self-government, and then into active Reconstruction, the modern era, which somewhere around 1990 it started, and when they started tearing down our monuments on a very rapid scale, which all that is a reflection back to active Reconstruction. So anyway, we'll have quite a few videos to go along. There'll be short videos, like 5-minute videos, and they'll have the QR code on the wall. The people coming through can hold their phone up and listen to a little short video. And there's about 2 or 3 articles that are digital copies that they can they'll be on a QR code, and people can put their phone up, download the article, and read about it later. There's one article that I'm searching for right now. I've got it somewhere in my files. Dr. Forrest McDonald did the article, and it's titled, Why Yankees Can't and Won't Leave Us Alone.
And Rod, remember to let them know, Dr. Forrest, now he's a late Dr. Forrest McDonald, but he was one of the great constitutional scholars in America. He was recognized everywhere, and I never will forget. And I believe one of the books he wrote, his publisher put a picture of Abraham Lincoln on the book, and some Yankee was interviewing Dr. McDonald about the picture of Lincoln. Is Lincoln one of your favorite president? And I thought Dr. Forrest McDonald was going to have a come apart. He said, by all means, no, that is the cause of all of our problems. And of course, all the Yankees just got it passed out right there, But he's a great, great, great man.
Yeah, let me answer Ed's question. I should have said, I thought I said 1990 on the monuments. That's when this is hard to say exactly when active Reconstruction began in the modern era, but I put it at 1990. That's when, and here's the only reason I did that was because that's when Donald and I sat down and wrote the first issue of The South Was Right, and we saw and we predicted what was going to happen. And of course, a lot of people thought we were extremists and radicals, and that'll never happen. They'll never take Lee's monument off of Lee Circle in New Orleans or in Richmond. Well, sorry, I hate to say, but they were wrong, and unfortunately, we were right. But anyway, 1990 is when I start the modern era of Reconstruction. You can argue about some people. I started back in the 1980s,
One of the things
it doesn't matter what's the point in time you point to, as long as we make the point that it is now active Reconstruction all over again. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised with the current political climate to see attempts to remilitarize governments in certain areas of America that's just not acting right according to the woke ideology. Okay, let's get off of that.
Well, one of the things I want to go back to the museum, that timeline, because you hit upon it, but it cannot be overly stressed that the Sons of Confederate Veterans and our charge from General Stephen D. Lee is to preserve, to promote, and protect the history of the South, not just the Confederate States of America. We have a unique culture, and that culture needs a defender, and we are the only ones out there that can really defend it. And that's why I like the timeline starts before those blue-nosed Puritans ever landed in that cold, God-forbidden shores of Massachusetts and New England. Our people were already here celebrating Thanksgiving, thank you, and they were already had a self-government. So many American children grow up thinking that the Mayflower Compact was the first really, quote, democratic government form in America. No. By the time those Puritans got on that boat, our forefathers in Virginia already had the House of Burgesses set up. They had a representative government. And Ron, as you know, that timeline goes all the way through the modern era. We're going to talk about the Dixie Division and all the Confederate ancestors, sons and grandsons and great-grandsons of Confederate veterans who fought nobly for the United States, and that we are a patriotic organization and a veterans organization, and it brings it right down to the present and shows the world right what's going on right now, that this is a neo-Marxist woke attack upon traditional American values. For the last 4 years, when I was chief of Heritage Operations, this is one of the things that both Commander Gremlin and other commanders have said, and we all say that this is an attack upon America, not just the South. That museum will show that. Plus, it's going to have a lot of unique artifacts in there, and that is something else that we need to talk about. If your family has I've been in South Carolina, Virginia, and Texas, and I've had people come up to me and say, in my family, we have such and such item, and I don't know what we're going to do with it. And I always suggest, by all means, consider either donating it to the Confederate Museum or put it on loan to the Confederate Museum. I have a copy of my wife's great-great-great-grandfather, who was a Confederate soldier from Alabama. It's in a very gilded, ornate presentation. It's on glass. I can't pronounce the glass image, but anyway, we're thinking about putting on a loan there, and it won't be displayed all the time, but anytime they're talking about Alabama soldiers or they're talking about the common soldiers of the South, that's part of the things they can bring out and show. Remember, a museum has to have stuff in storage and stuff on display. You don't want to just display the same old over and over. So if you donate or loan your great-great-granddaddy's rifle or pistol and you go to the museum, don't see it, that doesn't mean they sold it, got rid of it. Things will be moved around. That museum is a great teaching idea and a teaching element. It's going to go a long ways in telling the truth about Southern history.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about the fact that we have, I think now, two actual carpet bags that the carpetbaggers use. They'll be
Right.
displayed. That's the first time I've ever seen a real. I've seen pictures and artist descriptions, but I've never actually seen one. So that is great. Donald mentioned the fact that this is an attack, and I know Paul Gremlin, Commander Gremlin, and Commander McClooney, all of them have said that this is not just an attack on Southern values, it's an attack on all Western Christian civilization, all the values that we hold dear. And it's that the attack is made by people who believe in authoritarianism, they believe in tyranny, and they want to suppress any idea that would come against their Marxist, neo-Marxist views. If you have that picture of the statue or the sculpture that was destroyed in California, if you can show that up. Now, this is what's left of a monument or a statue that was done, sculpture that was done, and it was about almost 2 stories tall, and they finally came back and replaced it. Show us the second one, Moose. All right. Now, this says CCP virus. Now, this was put up by someone who is a Chinese American who is just outdone with the Communist Party in China, and and he made that sculpture in order to go against it. Now, you know what happened? The Chinese Communist Party sent agents over here, and they hired enough neo-Marxist thugs or whatever to burn that thing down. Well, the people got together and they built a second one. But the point is, authoritarians, people who hate freedom of expression, they detest any idea that is not 100% what they believe. They will take any measure possible to destroy it. It's no different. The communists that destroyed that statue is no different than the neo-Marxists who took down all of our Confederate monuments. And it's all part of one big effort to destroy Western Christian civilization and to promote a Marxist idea. Now, and Donald and I often call liberals, progressives, you name it, we call them neo-Marxists. And the reason is because they all, whether they realize it or not, they are neo-Marxists. They've been educated in America's not education system, but America's indoctrination system by postmodernist professors who are, we don't have time to go into it, but they are quasi-communists. They saw that the Marxism in Russia and China and other places was a failure, so they reformatted it into a battle of tribalism, of diversity, where one group is against another group, and the white European male is the bad guy, and all the other groups are against us. That's why they're called neo-Marxists. They no longer believe in the bourgeoisie and the proletariat and that type of, but they've gone to diversity as their mantra. That's why we call them neo-Marxists. I believe, we've got some new appointments, and the Commander-in-Chief, on the next time, he will go over his appointments, but he's got several new appointments. But I wanted to announce one appointment that he's already made for me, and that is the Deputy Chief of Heritage Promotions, and that's Mr. Bobby Herring out of Shreveport. And I say Shreveport, he may be in Bossier, Donald. I'm not sure where Bobby is. He's over there. He's almost in Texas, y'all. Yeah. He's close enough so if things gets too bad, he can run across the line there and go into Texas. But Bobby Herring will be my Deputy Chief of Heritage Operations Promotions, and I'm going to have him do a lot of work with the Dixie Defender, getting that out. When you send me the email, Donald, what's that email address? Do you have that?
I'll get it for you, man. So I'll be sure I'm absolutely right. It's C Legion at Reagan.com. CLEGION at Reagan.com.
Okay. C Legion at Reagan.com. Is that right?
I wish you told me earlier. I would have made sure I see.
Yeah,
I've
we
got
should have
too
sent
many
it
email
to
addresses.
Moose so he could have found it and put it out.
Yeah, I got it right here, Ron. I'm sorry. C Legion. It's a capital C, capital L, then EGION at Reagan, capital R, then EAGAN.com. There you go. Right. Whoop, whoop.
That's the wrong one, Moose.
Yeah, I don't know where
That's the one in 1896. That's the old one. That's the wrong one. Sorry, Moose.
Yeah. C Legion at Reagan.com. And I've been answering email on that today and yesterday. So that is the correct email address. There you go. That looks good. So just email it. Ron, could I just dovetail a little bit on what you said about the Marxists, the Chinese Marxists? It wasn't long ago when
I know what you're going to say.
The defense minister of Red China, Communist China, was being accosted by some American politicians about Red China wanting to invade Taiwan and pulling Taiwan back into China. And the Red Chinese communists just looked at the fellow and said, well, you Americans claim that Abraham Lincoln is the greatest president, and he was the one that brought secession in America to an end and kept America as one nation, indivisible, just like Red China is one nation, indivisible. So it's amazing, Ron. Tyrants all think alike, whether they're Abraham Lincoln or the communists in China or Adolf Hitler. They all seem to think alike, that if they want something and you're weak, they have a right to take it away from you.
Yeah, like we always say, only empires are indivisible.
Absolutely.
All right. So anyway, back again, I want to make sure when you decide you need some Dixie Defenders, if you or if you just want information about it, how much will it cost? Who do I need to contact? Just send that email as it's coming across there, CLLegion at Reagan.com, and I'll end up forwarding it to. If it's something that I need to attend to, I'll take care of it. But if it's a simple question about where do I get it, how much does it cost, who's going to mail it to me, and reminded people that they may cost 38 cents each.
About 38 cents
if we have the ad in the two ads that are in there. Donald and I have two ads in the one that's out currently, and we paid for them. Those are $50 ads each for each 1,000 issues. And if you are wanting to do one, if you've got somebody else that want to run an ad, we're more than happy to keep our money and let somebody else. But that keeps it down to about 38 cents each. And but you got to remember that you also have to pay for the shipping. So when you ship a big bundle of paper, a heavy paper, it's going to add a little bit more to the cost. But nonetheless, it's well worth it. We've got people. Donald, where was the last place where folks put that out in the newspaper?
Oh, that was up in Missouri, and I've had other people already in, I believe, South Carolina and North Carolina, and somebody in Virginia that's questioned me about that also. Now, if you don't mind, on the Dixie Defender, let me remind people that that's not something that comes out like the Confederate veteran. It comes out at times, and Ron and I will put together specialty issues. The one we have out right now is primarily for gun shows, but it's good for anybody. It's a soft sell of the Southern idea, the Southern history, and Southern heritage. So people get the right idea. Now, if your local division, if your state division wants one that's put together, talking about what happened, let's say South Carolina, or if your brigade or your camp would like to do one here I live in Union Parish, Louisiana, and it was named in 1845 for the original Union, not Abraham Lincoln's Union. Thank you, just the same. I've had people ask me that. But we've talking to the local SEV camp in Farmville, Louisiana, about doing one that's strictly about Union Parish. It's a unique thing that people want to read in the area, and lets them know, hey, the Sons of Confederate Veterans are active in this area and look at our history, and then they look at that Dixie Defender and they see that big ad about the Sons of Confederate Veterans, our museum, our headquarters, the gravesite of General Nathan Bedford Forrest. They have QR codes. They can go on there and look at some videos that are positive. And then there's a space where you can attach your camp's contact information. So if you want to have some Confederate Dixie Defenders that are specialized to your camp, your division, your brigade, or whatever, talk to us. You can email Ron. Ron will get with me and we'll help y'all put it together. And then we'll get Frank Pyle. He'll print them all for us. Now, remember, if it's specialty items, usually you're only going to get 1,000 to maybe 2,000. They'll be a little more expensive. If we're printing up a big wad, 5,000 to 10,000, we can hold it. It's like anything else. Greater the number, the lower the cost. So if you do, say for your camp, 1,000 Dixie Defenders that specialize in your area, what had happened, or the heroes in your area, it may, if you only do 1,000, it may run the price up to maybe 40 cents a piece. I don't know. That's just a wild guess, folks. But again, we can do specialized, custom-made Dixie Defenders, or you can buy the normal Dixie Defenders. Or if you want to take a look at some of the old, what we still have, the Southern, was it Southern Defenders, Ronnie?
Yeah,
I forgot.
Yeah. Southern Defenders.
Ray Shores has some of those on his website, and he'll be glad to sell you those. So any way you want to do, I'm really hoping we can get more of these Dixie Defenders out, because it's got ads in there, and it lets people in the local area know that the SCV is bigger than just this little small camp in this area. We have a national organization, a national museum, and that museum will attract people not only to our organization, but to the cause of the South. So we've got to utilize what we have, and we have a great opportunity with this museum for really changing a lot of minds and recruiting a lot of members.
Yeah, I really like the idea of doing the local special. Matter of fact, we had a camp in Florida contact me last week, and this week we've been discussing about doing local just for that county. It's something that is well worth the effort. And the neat thing about it is, when you start listing out the family names of some of the soldiers from that county, guess what? There's going to be a lot of people say, well, my last name is Johnson, I wonder if that was any of my relatives, if all of a sudden you piqued a lot of interest. And there's also local historical societies, when they see it, that it'll pique some interest. You might get some invites to come speak to the local historical society that meets at the library once a month or so. So there's all kind of possibilities, especially when you do that specialized for your area. All right. Let's see, Donald, we've got, it's almost 7:30. Let's talk a little bit about, didn't the Commander-in-Chief say he wanted to do something special in September?
Right. Matter of fact, Jason sent me, Commander Boshers sent me an email right before we went on the program, and he was talking about Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from September the 15th to October the 15th. And the Sons of Confederate Veterans, we're going to put out some information, press releases, and that sort of thing about Hispanic Confederates, which is something that we can really, really play up very big. Now, when I say this, remember, folks, when we do this, we need every SCV camp to take this, the news release, try to get it into your local paper. If you can't get it into your local paper, by all means, post it on your social media. Go around the monopoly of those people and get it on your social media. So, Ron, Hispanics, they played a big part in the Confederacy, did they not?
They played a major part. One of my favorite on Beauregard's staff was a Hispanic. He's Cuban. That's so I don't know if I'm a redneck from Mississippi. I don't know if Cubans consider themselves Hispanic or whatever, but he was definitely a Spanish-speaking Cuban. freedom fighter. He was an early freedom fighter in the struggle to free Cuba from Spain. And he came and was on Beauregard's staff. A great book written about him. And we also had now there's a controversy. He's either lieutenant or a captain. I've seen it listed both. Gonzalez from a Texas unit who fought at the Battle of Mansfield, which was immediate the day before Pleasant Hill, and was killed there. So, yes, Hispanic blood has been spilled all across the South in defense of Southern independence. Moose, do you have that the Hispanic ad that we have for the SCV? If you can, put that on. I want everybody to see that in case they haven't already seen it.
My dad told me he always had a kinship to the battle flag. Always growing up, he knew there was something there, but he couldn't put it together. I called my 97-year-old grandmother, and I asked her, do we have any soldiers in the family? I gave her 3 descriptions. Verde, which means green, for modern-day soldier. Blue, azul, or gris, means gray. And she said, mijo, which means my son in Spanish, is gris. It was gray. My great-great-grandfather was named Andres Torres Rodriguez. He was born in Mexico. He was a laborer. And he was an 8th Texas Infantry, and his unit later on got incorporated to the Texas 33rd Cavalry under Santos Benavides, who was the highest Mexican-American Confederate officer. He was a colonel. There was over 13,000 Hispanic soldiers throughout the Confederate States, but out of those 13,000 were 2,500 Tejanos. And it's 2 words combined. Texas in Spanish is Tejas. Mexican in Spanish, Mexicano. You combine both words, Tejano. They contributed a lot for Southern independence. I think that they deserve respect, honor, and dignity under the Confederate flag that they fought for. There was people of color, Mexican people, and other Hispanics, and other people of color that fought in this war. Everyone's reason was different, but primarily they fought in this war for their independence and to protect their homeland. I joined the SCV because I'm extremely proud of my Confederate heritage. I have Confederate DNA. I just want to ensure that the present generation and future generations know and never forget the contributions of Hispanics in the War of Northern Aggression. I am Richard Luna Garcia, the great-great-grandson of Private Andres Torres Rodriguez, a Tejano Confederate soldier.
Man, that's a great ad. Now, listen, when we do the Confederate or the Hispanic History Month, we're going to send out, and I'm going to see, I'm not sure if it's a QR code made yet for that, but I'm going to get a QR code made up for it. We'll do a sample letter. We'll send out sort of a counterattack like we've done in the past, a letter that you can then photocopy at your local camp. We're going to send this out to all the people in the Confederate Legion, and also send it out to everyone that's on the telegraph, so you can get that information and take it to your camp. And you make sure this is on your agenda at your next camp meeting during September, and say, look, we need to send these letters to, number one, you want to send it to the local agents of influence. Now, Donald and I talk about that, and I've done speeches on it, PowerPoint presentation, but Donald, in 25 words or less, what the heck are we talking about when we talk about agents of influence? Local agents of influence.
Civic clubs and groups of people that have influence in your community. Your Kiwanis Club, your Veterans Organization, VFW. These are agents of influence. Your history teachers, I don't care if it's public, private, homeschooling, history teachers need to get this information. Certainly a lot of the history teachers will look at it and say, SCV, trash it, but a lot of them will not. So we've got to make the effort. And these are agents of influence, and these are the people that will help spread the word about the diversity of the Confederacy. We're not a white supremacist organization. If we are, then we got a bunch of foolish Tejanos that are in our organization. And of course, we're not. We have African Americans, we have Hispanic Americans, we have Orientals, we have people,
Native Americans.
So anyway, the point is, these agents of influence who may have never heard of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, when they get that letter from the Sons of Confederate Veterans, the local camp, then they'll know who we are. And then they look on that QR code and see that ad, they will really know who we are. So this is another way we can go around the monopoly of the media, but it cannot be done from headquarters. Ron, you and I joined the SCV back in the mid-'80s. Then the first thing we was told back then was the work of the SCV is done at the local level. The national can help. It can give direction. It can do certain things, but the work is done at the local level. We've got to get our camps involved in doing these things, like sending out these letters to the agents of influence in your community. That has to be done. If we can do that, we can change minds, we can influence people, and politicians will hear about that. They'll understand that the Sons of Confederate Veterans, these Confederate people, they're active and they're getting mad. Maybe we all not let the neo-Marxists run rampant over us and our history. Ron, now, did we not do a poll recently in Louisiana of conservative Republicans? What was the result of that? And the poll was simply, I'm going to just put it in a nutshell. We don't have to go through all the questions. Do you like or dislike Confederate history? Ron, these poll that was done, what was the result?
It was phenomenal. It was, matter of fact, Donald, I got a couple more in today. I mean, we've already gone. We did this back in beginning of July, and I guess people just now seeing the letter because they'll answer it and they've sent it in. We had a little card, and we've talked about this before, so I don't want to waste a lot of time dwelling on it. But we sent a little prepaid, stamped, addressed postage card in the letter, explain what we wanted them to do, and they sent it back. We got about a 20%, 18 to 20% return in it, which is a phenomenal return on any mail-in poll. And if I were to tell the truth on some of the questions, it was 100% in favor of us. Yes. And people would write in. There wasn't any room to make comments, but people would make room. They'd walk just right around the margins and in between the lines. And their basic point that they were making is, as one guy said, it's about damn time somebody asked me what I thought about this. Yes. And yes. Another one said, which really stood out. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw it. He said, "What are these SOB?" And he didn't use SOB. He spelled it out. Politicians think they're doing tearing down our monuments. And he said, our monuments, not your monuments, not the Confederate veterans, but our monuments. So it was an attack upon him personally, and he was PO'd about it. And thank God somebody finally gave him a little bit way to vent his frustration. We're talking about between 89 and 99% of the people who elected the very politicians that's been taking our monuments down. Now, I realize in a democratically controlled city, that's one thing, but we've had Republican conservatives vote with Black Lives Matter and the other Antifa and the other extremist organization demanded that these Confederate monuments be removed. And it's ridiculous. It's absurd. They're not our politicians are not representing our interests. They're representing their own personal interest because they're afraid to get involved in a controversy. Well, we're going to make it very controversial for them if they continue stabbing us in the back. So anyway, that's what we're doing. So, oh, by the way, when you're sending these letters to the Kiwanis clubs, to the Knights of Columbus, and don't forget about your local pastors, and don't forget about every one of your elected politicians, especially if they're conservative, Democrat or Republican, conservative. Make sure they get a copy. And Donald, do you remember? Because a lot of people said, "Well, they won't pay any attention to it. That won't make any difference." Well, I'm sorry, but you don't know what you're talking about. That's what you think. Donald, do you remember a little song that Coke had? This before Coke went woke. "We Are the World." You remember that song? You heard it everywhere. Coke spent almost $1 billion promoting that little song. Now, do you think they promoted that song in order to sell one little Coke can of Coke? They were wanting to imprint in the mind of the general public Coke. And that's the way you it's repetition. I know it's the mother of learning. It also gets a little boring to do this every other month to send out these letters, but that's the way you win. And if you want to win, that's what you got to do. So I think, Donald, we're at Pop-Tart time. It's a Pop-Tart break, Moose. Do you want to do a commercial and do a Pop-Tart break? Moose may be asleep. I don't know.
He might be out grazing in the pasture. I don't know.
Well, if not, we'll continue, Moose. If you're not, here we go. Well,
there is a place nestled in the rolling farmland of southern Middle Tennessee. A home constructed in 1837, nearly lost to the ravages of war. Saved by a servant and a Confederate general. A place where families loved and lost. If walls could talk, what stories could be told? If a place, a home, can feel love, loss, pain, surely this is one of those places. Nearby is a more recent structure, and inside are the stories of heroes and heroines, stories of battles won and lost, stories of sacrifices made by the people of its native soil. A place that will tell the true and complete story of the Southland and the war fought for its freedom. From the causes that led to the conflict to the modern-day struggles to protect Southern history. Historic Elm Springs and the Confederate Museum at Elm Springs are the general headquarters for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. A place where the story of the Southland and its historic struggle is preserved and told. Come and discover your history.
Now, Donald, I want to see that ad on a national, maybe Newsmax or on a trailer after the Tucker Carlson show. Don't you think that would be a tremendous boon for the Sons of Confederate Veterans? How can we do that?
Well, one thing I know, Commander Boshers has talked about that. Before Commander Larry McClooney, he also started pushing that idea, getting the ball rolling. And we go back to Grambling when he said, take back the narrative. He said, hey, we've got to do more than what we do. And so we've got 3 generations of commanders who seem to be on board with the idea of putting things like this out on a national basis. I would love, it would just thrill me to death to hear an ad, either one of these 2 ads that we just saw on, say, any Fox program. Now, that, unfortunately, folks, that costs a heck of a lot of money. And it's like it's an old story. We got to crawl before we can walk. We got to walk before we can run. But we can't begin the process of taking our narrative out to the general public nationally, whether it's on print media such as Epic Time, which is a print media that goes out to probably 500,000 Americans, and we could use that. We could go on Sirius Radio and put some of our radio ads for the Sons of Confederate Veterans on national radio programs there. There are many things we can do. Newsmax it may offer a platform that we can use. But one of the things that Jason and I have talked about, and I think Jason was one that really got this idea rolling, was we've got this beautiful, unique museum that tells a story that is not being told anywhere else. Every quote Southern museum, Confederate museum, Civil War museum is absolutely sold out to wokeness. Now I won't say every, but all the major ones. There's a lot of small ones that are doing a fine job that are still telling the true story. But this is a national Confederate museum. And what we need to do is, let's say, get on Newsmax, which is second to Fox News as far as getting conservative type of people who are already small government type. And remember, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, we're dedicated, look at our Constitution, to promoting the strict construction policy of the Constitution. Limited government, strict construction is right in our SCV Constitution. So the natural media out there or audience is people like who'd watch Fox News or Newsmax. I think we can get that ad in Newsmax to advertise the museum, and then when they look at the museum, they'll see it's the national headquarters for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. They can also find out information on how to join the SCV. And that's one thing. I think we're running out of time, but we might need to talk about a little bit, is how some ideas of how we can streamline and capture people who are desiring to become members. Because if we get these ads on national media, you're going to have a lot of people who do not have Confederate lineage tacked down that will want to join our organization. And we want them to be able to at least have a holding pattern that we can get them and hang on to them and work with them to get them into the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Plus, there's a lot of them that'll never want to join, but they'll want to donate to this cause when they see that, hey, you people are fighting for traditional American values. That's what I believe in. So they'll want to donate, and we need the donations. But to do this, it's going to take money, folks. Unfortunately, I think Adam has let our money tree at the back of the museum die on us, so we can't go out there and just pull money off the money tree. The money comes from people like you and I who graciously pony up and say, here's $5, here's $50, here's $500. I've had people come up to me when I was Chief of Heritage Operation and literally write a check for $10,000 to promote this cause. Listen, people do believe in what we're talking about here. And folks, with Commander Boshers in charge, we've got a captain of the vessel that will head us in the correct direction of getting our ideas out to John Q. Public. Now, Ron, when John Q. Public, the Americans in general, hears this, who is going to really be influenced? Now, I know our members are going to be really inspired because they're going to love to see that on TV. But who else is going to be put on notice?
Well, see, and that's the important thing, because I see up here, there's a question sent in at 7:19. It says, what's being done currently about the Confederate monuments from Richmond, Virginia being taken and given to the museum in L.A.? And I guess that's Los Angeles, because I don't think it's being given to any Louisiana museum to be used as propaganda to attack the South. Well, what can we do? We've got to change the public attitude. We don't have to change it. We've got to motivate the public attitude. Because listen, according to a poll recently done, between 53 and 55% of Americans, not Southerners, but Americans across the board, from the West Coast to the East Coast, Chicago, including the South, 54% believe in maintaining our Southern heritage. So that's why it's so important. We can motivate these people. We can activate these people. We can put the fear of God in politicians that are allowing state laws, for instance, that are forbid the destruction of monuments, and yet the monuments are destroyed and the politicians won't enforce the law. Well, we can change that. We can put the hurt on the politicians that don't just stand behind our interests, but we can't do it without first motivating the general public. So it's so important when these ads go out, our members get excited because, hey, we gone national, so they'll see it. A lot of new members will come in. People will seek information. Some won't have the ancestry to join directly, but they can become friends of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. We got a large number, and we're going to have even more friends of the Sons of Confederacy, Sons of Confederate Veterans. So that's very important thing. But we've got to get. We need to hit a membership goal of 100,000. You get 100,000 members, including the friends. So members and friends and the Sons of Confederate Veterans, no politician will want to come against us. So it's up to us to do it. Now, when that video goes out, that ad goes out on, say, Newsmax, which is going to cost a pretty penny, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to get a clip of it. And we're going to make a QR code so people can see that clip. We're going to send a letter. The Confederate Legion will send that letter to the camps, to all the Confederate Legion members. Say, take this to your camp. Get this out to the politicians, to your local agents of influence. Listen, folks, we want them to know us by our first names. We want them to know us. We're talking about to the local level. We want them to know us by face and by reputation as being America's oldest continually operating veterans organization who are defending not just Confederate history, but true American values, the Western Christian values that made us great. I know Carl had something up, Donald. Did you get a chance to read what Carl said?
Basically, there you go. He said that every camp and every supporter needs to become an evangelist for the cause in our local community.
Absolutely,
and Carl, which one's a dog and which one's you on that picture? You on the right or the left?
You're so bad. Anybody can see he's on the right. I mean, come on, that's Carl smiling there. Yeah. But we like to pick on Carl, not that he doesn't pick on us. But this is the important thing of being a part of the Sons of Confederate Veterans is to vindicate the cause for which our ancestors fought. And at the end of the war, after the end of the war in 1866, in an address to, in his book, I know he did, Vice President Alexander Stephens said the cause of the South is now the cause of all of them, and he was talking to all Americans. So what was that cause? Slavery? Jim Crow? No, it was a cause of states' rights, constitutional government, a limited government, a constitution that's enforced not by the federal bureaucracy, not by 87,000 well-armed IRS agents, no, but a constitution that's enforced by we, the people within our sovereign state. And if we want to, we'll nullify the 87,000 well-armed IRS agents. That's the purpose of the Constitution in its original form. And it was used very successfully even up to 1859. So it's there. Yeah. Don, we're about to run out of time. I did have, I wanted to make sure everyone knows, I tried to get on the Make Dixie Great Again website and got a notice that it was down there. Upgrading it. That's run by Ray Shores out of Florida, Mississippi. He's done a great job for us, and he's hosts a lot of our videos and stuff. But right now, Donald and I are working with headquarters to come up with a new Confederate Legion website, which would be a lot easier for you to navigate and get your information off of, your radio ads, your template letters that go out, that type of thing, and also join. And I have been working diligently putting together a spreadsheet of everyone who has joined the Confederate Legion, so that I will be able to tell you when you come up to me, am I paid up? And I'll be able to look at my notebook and tell you that. That's a Confederate Legion thing, but I wanted to let everybody know about that. We got about 4 minutes. Most of you have another question. You had one question I said I wanted you to make sure you asked that we got from the last commander's comment.
Yes, sir. Let's see here. I don't know which one specifically you wanted me to ask, but they're all good questions here.
All right.
Someone asked, is the museum only going to focus all things Confederate? I would like to see all things Southern be included in the museum.
Don?
I thought we made that clear over and over, but it bears repeating. If you start in 1609 and go to today, it's all things Southern, and that is the whole emphasis of that museum. Yes, we're promoting the idea of the Confederacy, but it is Southern culture and history all encapsulated there. So the answer to that is everything, not just Confederate. But we don't apologize. We don't apologize for our Confederate history. No way will we ever do that.
But it's important to incorporate. I mean, it's things such as shape note singing. I know that was a big thing in the South. We need to have a big thing on the grounds there on shape note singing. Put up a big tent and have a brush arbor type meeting. That's part of our Southern heritage, Southern culture. And he said, well, that's not part of this quote Civil War. You're right. And most of the people that will come to that type of meeting to enjoy that type of thing will then be exposed to our Confederate Museum, to Elm Springs, to the Sons of Confederate Veterans. So it's very important that we include all of this. NASCAR cars with people who own their NASCAR. That'd be great to have that on there. We can fly the Confederate flag when people who own cars that has ran in NASCAR or NASCAR Light, some of the other non-NASCAR races, bring them there and make a big show of people who can come see NASCAR cars. I'm not a NASCAR fan. I got that out of my system shortly after I quit being a teenager. But a lot of people love it. A lot of people do it. A lot of people follow it. And we could draw in people to the Sons of Confederate Veterans that's part of, hey, everybody knows NASCAR. No, it started in the South with moonshiners, so it would be a great thing that we could do. And there's just any number of things we could do like that would deal with Southern heritage. Yeah, Don.
Right quick, there are some events coming up. We're going to have a GEC meeting in October. It's open to all SCV members unless we're in executive session, obviously. So that's going to be at national headquarters on October the 1st. Elm Springs and the National Confederate Museum, they'll open up for Murray County Christmas historic tour of homes. And that brings in a lot of people. Adam did want me to let you know the Rusty Sutler that was scheduled to be in September had to be canceled, but they were going to try to do that later on in the year. So there's a lot of events coming up. They've got some type of Halloween program, I understand there. And the good thing about it is, like what Ron said, it attracts people that would not maybe normally come to see a quote old museum, and they see the museum, they see the headquarters, and they'll have a Confederate positive experience. So these events are very important. They generate a little revenue, but the main thing is they generate goodwill.
And also, there was one question about school children being invited. Now, you want to
Yes, right.
because
Well,
we're running out of time, so let's get that one in.
okay. I talked to Commander Boshers, and according to what I understand, that yes, they will have school children in there, but they got started late this year. It may have to wait till next year to really get it going with the public schools, but the private and homeschoolers, they are beginning to get those in, and some public schools, but to get them on their schedule, they have to get them started at a certain date. Obviously, probably before August, maybe June of the preceding year. So they will do that. And we're hoping by inviting homeschooling and private school kids there that will open the door to even more and more public schools. So yes, indeed, we're going to do that. Yes, the museum will be open and the headquarters will be open during the GEC meeting. And as I said, every SCV member is welcome to come to the GEC meeting unless we're in executive session. It is limited space, and if you're coming all day and you want to try to get in on the eating, you might want to let somebody know so we can make preparation for that and make sure that we have enough to get everybody fed. Other than that, Ron, this has been a good commander's comment, and probably the only commander's comment I'll ever do.
Yeah, because I understand you swore that you're not going to run for Commander-in-Chief.
And if I can get out of it, I will. I won't have it.
All right. Well, listen, again, I appreciate everybody's time listening. I hope we've been able to answer some of your questions and give you some good information. By all means, send in questions on your SCV chat, on the comments, and we will pick them up and we'll try to answer them. I look at the ones on YouTube. They come to me, so I can see those, and I'm going to try to answer questions that we don't have time to answer here. I'm going to try to answer that some in my column, Advance the Colors. I'll also show you some of the nasty ones that we get, which is always interesting to see the uncivil nature of our opposition. I mean, they are so far removed from civility. Well, they don't even know what it means. But it's they send these harsh, and I always love to try to black out, redact, as they would say, the curse words that can't be printed, or I don't want to print in our journal, but I will have some of those. That'll be of interest for everyone to see. Other than that, it's time to close it down, Moose. We appreciate everyone. This is Ron Kennedy, Chief of Heritage Operations, along with our Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief, Donnie Kennedy. We're so sorry that Commander-in-Chief Boshers couldn't make it due to a health emergency with his father, and we pray that his father is doing much better now. And last I heard, he said he was doing much better. Moose, it's all yours now. Take it over.